Good afternoon. Welcome to the Communication Leadership Question and Answer Live. My name is Scott Macklin. I'm the Associate Director of the Comm Lead program. Here to answer your questions, take you through a little tour of our program, and hopefully help situate you to see if your investment into the next phase of your potential emergence could be spent with us as we think about how communication unfolds in the 21st century. If you do have questions, please type them into the chat window, and then we'll respond to those questions. And I'm just going to be flipping over to those screen right now. And as we get going through this program, I'm gonna be showing off some aspects of who we are, how we operate, whom to serve, and how you might see yourselves in the context in this program. But to begin, because we believe that we have a harmony between the creation of compelling content, how we think about engaging our constituents and building relationships, and then how do we track the success of those efforts. So the content creation, the engagement strategy, and the analytics and metrics all need to work in concert. I want to show you an example of some compelling content that we've created about our program.
We believe that the heart of successful communication for professionals in the 21st century lies in our version of content strategy, storytelling. If you can create remarkable content, one that inspires and brings out emotion to influence trust and persuasion, tie that to relationship, communities, and networks, and then look at measurement, the analytics. How successful have you been with that communication? To us, that is a recipe for success. And to do it here in the heart of innovation, one of the top 5 most innovative universities in the world, the University of Washington, even as we connect to some of the remarkable organizations here in the Seattle area. We have relationships with Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing, the Gates Foundation, and smaller nonprofit organizations that are doing just remarkable work. Our students have the opportunity to collaborate with those organizations, even as we help them show the way with this communications first world. In the end, there's no better place to be a communication leader.
I thought for a couple of years about applying to this program, and when I finally did, it was really because I'd heard so much about the network that this program gives you and about the chances you have as a student to work on projects with actual community organizations. So that's one thing that really attracted me to this program, and it's something I got to do in my second quarter. The project was a collaboration between UW and the Seattle Department of Transportation, SDOT, to create a series of tutorial videos for this program that they're piloting called Play Streets. I worked with Scott Macklin, and so for the first video, I was basically his assistant when it came to production. He shot it, but I was there assisting and doing audio and learning by doing, and then I edited all the videos. For the second one, we flipped the roles. I was doing the shooting and he was there as a resource. And then for the third video, he showed up and said, "Are you good to go?" And I said yes, and he left, and I did the whole thing myself. So it was a really great learning experience to go from basically not having had much experience and learning the nuts and bolts of production to being able to do it completely on my own.
For the Communication Leadership Graduate Program, engaging in acts of community scholarship means utilizing our communication strategies, our resources, and our skills to work with a variety of partners in order to build understanding and capacity in this ever-evolving landscape of media innovation. We see the heart of this to be storytelling. We also strive to teach our students not only the particular skills to create digital media, but to increase and widen access to creative ideas, cultural expressions, and business strategies. We draw upon a world-class faculty who work in concert with our students to work through the collaborative process of meaning-making in order to bring ideas alive and in order to create opportunities that draw upon our interests and our passions.
One of the best things about the Comm Lead program is that it provides students with the means to take risks and embrace opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't. This is a highly supportive environment, and the instructors and fellow students will do whatever they can to help you on your journey. The Comm Lead program fosters this willingness to collaborate. We all have our individual skill sets. We all come from so many unique disciplines. And having this chance to work together, we're able to build something larger. We're able to stand back and see this bigger picture, this broader ecosystem of storytelling. It's this wonderful union of passion and resources, and that's what this program is creating for the communities that it serves.
Comm Lead students are hungry to make their mark on the always changing field of communication. As faculty, we take their curiosity and their excitement and we direct it toward mastery. Our students are interested in real-world learning that broadens their idea of what's possible and builds their expertise. This learning takes place in Comm Lead classrooms, where we challenge assumptions, encourage active listening, and promote critical thinking. They also push some comfort zones. We expect students to lead in and out of the classroom by producing creative work that has an impact not just here in Seattle, but across the country and into the wider world.
Screen Summit was one of my most memorable experiences as a comm leader. I got the opportunity to learn from some of the best in the industry, some of the top leaders when it comes to public speaking, and I successfully presented my project. And I soon realized that as soon as you get into a professional world, you need those tools to survive in the industry. In my role as a content strategist now, I often have to present the logic behind my ideas to product managers, stakeholders, and everyone in the team really. And so those public speaking skills really come into real life practice. As a person and as a professional, I really grew during that Screen Summit process.
Comm Lead's not just about top-down learning. Our students learn from one another. Relationships that start in the classroom are beneficial throughout their careers and include an expansive alumni network. Because you see, Comm Lead students don't just graduate with a degree. Comm Lead students graduate as part of a learning community of friends and trusted colleagues.
I think it's interesting that the program is in Seattle. Being in Seattle gives you access to some of the top tech companies. It gives you access to other professionals regardless of the sector that you're interested in working in. No matter what you want to try, there's someone here trying to do it, and chances are somebody in the program can help you connect with somebody in any area you're interested in. It's pretty astonishing. So if you want to become part of an amazing, creative, supportive group of people, join Comm Lead. It is one of the best programs and networks I have ever been lucky enough to be a part of.
1, 2, 3.
We are rolling. Take 2, intro, started dancing.
Oh, you want to clap?
For the Communication Leadership Program, well, let me sorry.
We are rolling by producing creative work.
Seattle. Oh, you're running into a tree. I should have said something earlier, but it was a good shot for Scott.
Boo.
I'm so sorry for you.
Okay, let's try that again.
Oh, that was awesome. No problem.
Okay, so you know what I find really fascinating about that video is that we rolled that ourselves. Alona Idlis, one of our colleagues, put the video together. We crafted the story about who we are, and in many ways who we are is based on the work that our students do in concert with our faculty and the resources that we create from them. But ultimately we're trying to construct in the context of higher education and a master's level learning opportunity is what does it take to build communities of practice? How do we begin to see each other as a community involved in various communities? And what practice does it take to get there? And I argue you need the places and the spaces to practice community building. And one way to practice that is through convening of story and the creation of story and those stories that matter to who we are and to who we serve. And the students who come into our program, giving them the opportunity to create and develop their own story, and that's in the context of our foundational course in the fall taught by Anita Verna Crofts. What is authentic to you? What is your story? And then as you move into that second foundational course in the winter, how do you change the aperture, your depth of field, and the focus to begin looking at how do we help those organizations that we are a part of be better at living their story and therefore telling our stories. And that's the work that we want to engage. So with the video that was just shown, you hear from our students talking about the projects that they work on inside a class, the scope of work they do outside of the class, and how we scaffold the arc of their learning through their time here, from orientation through the foundational courses to the electives to ultimately to the Screen Summit, where students get a chance to present and showcase their work to our community and our network, which is made up of influencers and leaders throughout the Northwest, if not throughout the United States and the world, in terms of people who are making a difference in the context of, as Hans would like to say, our communication first reality. In order to, I think, help demonstrate, because I love in this idea of using story and video, how do you bring closer the phenomena, the action, the activity, and the representation of that phenomena? And that representation, in many ways, is creating that story. How do you make the abstract more real? How do you make the complex lean into? It's not that you're simplifying the complex. We live in a complex world, but how do you help people lean into those complexities? And that lean into that taking the abstract and making it real is what I call the creation of story. That's what stories help us to do. And so I want to give you another example of the types of stories that our students create through another mechanism that we call Flip the Media, which is our online outlet of students that's completely student run. Students are the editors of it, and students are the main contributors, but they also tap other experts in the field to contribute, and they'll travel to places like South by Southwest or Seattle Interactive Conference or in Northwest to report on happenings, but also to tell stories of what's current today. So here's an example of Flip the Media in action.
Flip the Media is the student publication of our Communication Leadership graduate program.
It's a student-driven content outlet. And over the years of Flip, it's actually gained, I think, some industry cred. And so our students can come out of it with a professional piece that becomes highly attractive for those folks who might want to employ them or engage them or partner with them.
Flip the Media is really a wonderful way for students, especially who have not had that much opportunity to actually put their stuff out there, to do so within a wonderful collective of supporting students and faculty.
So we welcome contributions from students spanning across all sorts of ranges of content. So whether that means that you want to write, or you want to take photos, or you want to do social media community managing, we really want to make sure that people who contribute to Flip really get the most out of it that they can.
This March I had the opportunity to write about Emerald City Comic Con for Flip the Media. I really like comic books and video games, so it is really cool to be able to kind of do something relevant to my personal interests and have it be for school at the same time.
Personally, I feel like I've gotten to do some really interesting things because of Flip. I got to cover South by Southwest in Austin, Texas last year as a result of Flip, and that was so much fun. We cover SIF, Seattle Interactive Conference, GeekWire Summit. Basically, if it's happening in the Seattle area and it has to do with media, technology, we've got people from Flip there covering it.
Flip the Media really becomes an integrated place for our students to play in content creation that can hopefully enhance their career, but also to create compelling content that I hope does good in the world.
Every year in our program almost is like another album, a music album, because it's a different composition, it's a different feel, it's a different message that we're trying to convey.
And the shape and the feel and the tone of Flip really takes on the personality of those students who are involved.
Each one of these people, no matter what their age and level of experience, actually brings expertise to the table. How do we take advantage of this and share it with the world?
We are so excited to have a new pool of students coming in to become contributors to Flip, and we're really looking forward to seeing the new ideas and the new angles that the new cohort is going to bring.
So that's an example of us creating a content outlet for our organization that is actually run by our learners and our students. And the video that you saw was actually produced by two of our students who help are doing wonderful work in our program. I've actually formed a company and had one of their videos go viral, and I'll show you a clip of that in a moment. But I want to also use that last example of that video that I showed you to answer the question that Hanson asked of how do you sell story in a professional setting, which is a bit of a loaded question, and I appreciated the loadedness of it, because for me, fundamentally, it's always about that value proposition, right? What is the value proposition of taking the time and the energy to create a particular story? And then you need to ask the question, who is that story serving? Is it serving an internal function to create a better understanding of who we are in this organization and who we serve? Is it serving a bridging function so those folks who are in partnership or we want to be in relationship, either as a customer or a constituent or a learner, what is the value proposition for them to engage with us? So what content and story do we need to create the compelling atmosphere for them to want to work with us, to be in partner with us? And so to think about that sell aspect, I want to change the sell to come up with the value proposition. Therefore, you need to know what your metrics are for success. And I think if you be able to begin to speak in metrics using analytics and data, you can get to that sell aspect and communicate to those folks in the C-suite who understand that language. You need to put it that way. Because you can't say, oh, we're gonna do a video because it's gonna make us feel good. Well, feel good is great, and I love to feel good. But how does that affect what we consider to be the bottom line? And for me, is that bottom line rooted in that profit? Is that bottom line rooted into social good? And for me, these necessarily don't need to be mutually exclusive. But we need to know what we're driving towards, because that's going to set up how we go about creating the stories that we want to create. So the sell aspect in many ways, again, is this idea of articulating your value proposition and then being able to demonstrate the return on investment in that work that you're creating. In the work that I've been doing with the Seattle City Schools, we've been working with teachers from a range of different disciplines, teaching them how to integrate media and technology into their teaching and learning so they can approach and create motivation for their students, but also allow their students to be able to demonstrate their learning in action, more than just responding in a paper or answering questions on a test. How do we make the process of learning more visible? And I think that is a value proposition that can be understood in the context of leadership in schools. And therefore, how do we get the teachers to teach in that way? Well, we have to model it. They have to be demonstrated. They have to have the resources and the support. So I'm using the example of teaching. You could pick any industry and put in those same context. What are your models? What are your examples? What are the pathways to create this? And then how do you know you're making good on your promises? By aligning it to your goals. So to give an example of how we're doing that with teachers in city schools, here's a short video about some of the training we've been doing with teachers.
Good morning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for coming in, guys. I know it's a little bit early this morning. The title of our workshop here is of course Skills for 21st Century Educators, which is a little bit of a play on the whole idea of 21st century skills, which is kind of a buzzword. But we do know that skills like creativity, innovation, problem solving, stuff like that are important not just for students, but for educators that are teaching them as well. We have a fantastic lineup of classes for you guys today. So the video making workshop is right in here.
So we're in the media making workshop at the EMP, right? Okay. it feels a little formal for me to be at a podium and you guys to be in the audience. So we'll try to break this down. But I just want to give a sort of a general overview to think about how we can use media making as an effective tool to help our learners get motivated to whatever particular subject area that you happen to be an expert in. And I call it learning to film, filming to learn, because I think there's a powerful pedagogy in terms of creating media, creating films, and it's wonderful to see what youth can do and what learners can do once they take up that practice and really dig into it. And so what I want to do is just go through the process of showing you some things, modeling some of the software, and then having you guys spend the time at lunch to go through the museum to create your own stories. And by the end of the session, you're going to all have created a mini trailer of hopefully what you learned or what you hope to have your learners learn coming out of this session. Now we're going to be moving into the exercise phase of this workshop, where you'll be actually using iMovie on the iPad to create a movie, and we'll be working in trailer mode. Now keep in mind, trailer mode is a template, but I think it's a powerful way to scaffold the learning, and the goal is to articulate your action idea and then think about and plan the images and videos you want to collect. Then you'll be going throughout the EMP museum to collect those images and videos. Then we'll meet back here in order to edit those images and videos together to create your stories.
I'm Lori Lieber. I'm from Seattle World School, and the action idea is that this group of teachers came to this museum to learn about media making. The wow was with that I didn't feel really scared to try the media, and I think I've been kind of avoiding getting the iPads out, and I thought it would be more cumbersome and harder to figure out, and it was really much easier than I expected. So I was glad to find out that if I feel this comfortable, then the kids are going to feel 10 times more comfortable. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Bill Butler. I'm with the Seattle World School, and I think my action idea is a museum that explores who we are, where we've been, and where we can go. Definitely, I would use it. I think, one, the framework of the templates give people access to telling a story. I think once they see it, they're going to want to use it. I think it's very, very engaging, and so just basically help give people ideas of things they can do and say.
Hi, my name is Serena Samar. I teach at Garfield High School, and my action idea was basically being inspired to connect creativity to educational outcomes. This is such an awesome place to play. Just having the space to even take the time to create something like this, because our days are so crazy and busy, that it's a nice little shot in the arm, and to be able to know that I have this inside and that I could bring it hopefully out to my students.
Hi, I'm Elise Silstra. I teach at Garfield High School, and my action idea is me coming to the EMP for the first time for this PD, but also to check out the museum. The wow was how easy it was to use the template, and the wonder is how could I make it more personal, like change the music and pick out the music and everything.
I'm Janet Woodward. I'm the librarian at Garfield, and I wanted to do the fantasy exhibit. I thought, oh, I'll do something about the fantasy exhibit, but then I didn't have any great ideas. I thought, well, the museum would do a much better job of advertising their own fantasy exhibit, so I just sort of did something on fantasy. So I feel like it's just, I don't do iPad. If I did it every day, I feel like I would be really comfortable with it. But I just feel like I do it every couple of months, so then I have to remember, okay, what do you do again? So I think that's the key, is using it really often, and then you feel like you're really comfortable with it. Because I take a lot of photos. Video I don't do so much, but I mean, I've done some. But it's putting it together that I really appreciate the opportunity to do it here.
My name is John Affolter. I'm from Garfield High School, and my action number is a little nebulous. I didn't work in the museum. I had to go out and feed my meter. When I was out there, I went to get to eat, and I was sitting in the eating circus, and I thought, God, this is a great place. I have a non-anonymity there, so I just started doing my piece there. So what mine was is a place where people come to eat. I have a background in art. I have a master's in art, and I was a studio artist for a long time. And I always carried my journal / sketchbook around with me. And when I was sitting there playing with this thing, it just sort of, wow, this is like one of my sketchbooks. I'm sitting here in the middle of this place, and ideas are coming, and I'm organizing them. One of the things I've been concerned about is, as I've said a couple times, is that what worries me about math is that there's no story. In social studies, in language arts, in foreign languages, there's always the presence of a story, but math is pretty cut and dry. And that was what I was trying to do with my little iPad things, is to put a story behind a thinking process that led to a calculation. And so now I'm thinking, okay, especially with some of these formats, if I could assign like something like a detective thing where they have to solve a problem, and the source of the problem will be a specific math operation, and to put something into it besides just knowing how to calculate.
Wow, really great work on your projects. I love the way that you brought your action ideas to life with images and video. Keep in mind, as you develop meaningful media making assignments for your learners, that you can also employ these skills and capabilities to develop innovative ways to make student learning more visible by documenting the process of the learning and then presenting the product of that process. So that particular film was an example of one of our community partners, and the reason why I wanted to show that film, because I think it gets at the examples of how we not only provide the training for the skills of content development, content creation, and production value, but we also take a really hardcore look at coupling the skill with the conceptual understanding and the competencies necessary for an organization to move forward. And we really look at story making as a convening methodology rooted in this collective crafting of an action idea. Who are you serving? What challenges are you overcoming? What resolutions are we looking for? And how does that articulation of the action idea become a focusing mechanism? There's this wonderful German word, Stimmung, which means fundamental attunement. How do we tune in as an organization to our goals and our aspiration and our vision? Well, through the understanding of our story as developed through an action idea. If you're in a band, right, you want to be in tune with your other musicians. Well, being in tune doesn't necessarily mean you're going to write a good song, but you're not going to write a good song unless you find what is that tuning mechanism. What are we tuning to? What is that standard? And that standard needs to be articulated out of the context of that organization, and then have the leadership to make sure that we stay aligned to that action idea. It doesn't mean that things don't evolve and morph over time and we become elastic, but the more that we can stay grounded in our action idea, I think the better we are able to serve those that crafted the action idea with us. So the convening methodology is one, the articulation of the action idea. But then what are the reifications of that action idea? What are the images? What are the audio? What are the artifacts? Whether that's an e-newsletter, a website, a mini-documentary, a podcast. as we get into virtual reality. I mean, there are some amazing technologies that are current, another, Heidegger word, ready to hand, right in front of us, that these technologies become tacit like a pair of glasses. A wonderful tool. I forget that I have this tool on, but it helps me to see. Now, this I'm not going to forget because I have to hold it. It's big, it's chunky. I have to do something to implement it. There's a barrier point to operating this tool, but that barrier point is reducing. And I'm motivated to use this tool, one, because there's a wow factor. I put my smartphone in here, and all of a sudden I have a 3D virtual immersive encounter. Now, is it ready for prime time? Almost. Do we know the difference that it's going to make in terms of moving people to action? Not quite. Is it storytelling, or is it just cool? These are all things that we're entering into uncharted water, but one of the things we want to have our students engage in is a critical understanding of what this media, what this content means, and we get to that meaningful understanding through the creation, deployment, and then analysis of that content. And that's one of the hearts of our program. So when we're working with various organizations through our community scholarship, rooting it in the action idea is key. This notion of deep hanging out, and we're not just, in a sense, a production facility creating content, get in, get out. Part of it is also a transfer of the ability to continue telling those stories, because I don't care if you're coming at it from being a startup to being enterprise business high cap, to an NGO, to an educational organization or government organization, right? The key is, how do we begin to work with these various communities so they can then have the skills, capabilities to tell their own stories? And how do each of these organizations begin to operate and act like a learning organization? Because we need to embrace the ability to constantly be in a learning mode, because the challenges that are facing us in the 21st century are asking us to answer questions that we can no longer answer just from our little part of the world or through our particular lens. How do we begin to look through multiple lenses, understand those various lenses, and then transform what we see to a translatable action, story, or movement? So I'm taking a long roundabout answer to the question on how we work with community-based organizations or business organizations. How do we get them to understand and articulate their action idea? Through a process of deep hanging out, how do we craft that story strategy that connects that action idea, the goal, with the production means and capabilities, to how we go about understanding the success of that? And our students who are coming out of this program, they become leaders in this area. And it's exciting to see that the work that they create and the projects that they do, which is showcased, again, as I talked about before, this arc of their learning through the course of their time with us in the Screen Summit. So I have some examples of students' work as they articulate what they learned and how they showcase what they've learned.
I made this short documentary called Luchadora for a class that's Alex and Sarah's multimedia production class. In that class, they kind of teach you from stem to stern how to build a documentary and make a video, and everything from interviewing to sound to, how to use the camera.
Avispa is very good luchadora. She learns fast, and when all the group is here, you see is 90.9% men, but she's woman. I had 3 or 4 more student ladies, but she's the first luchadora in all the Northwest.
Sure. So the film is about the Pacific Northwest first and only female, fully debuted female professional luchadora. Lucha Libre is a popular sport in Mexico. It's a Mexican kind of wrestling, and they wear masks, and it's really fun. And so I found, as part of Sarah and Alex's class, I found a facility, a gym in Renton, where they train people to do this kind of sport, and she was the only woman in the group. And so actually, Sarah told me that that should be my story. So Sarah and Alex convinced me to submit it to the Seattle International Film Festival, which I did, and it got in, and then it screened a couple weeks ago, and the entire Lucha gym showed up in their masks, and it was quite the spectacle, and we took pictures, and it was really interesting, and they loved it.
If you ask any of the guys at the gym, when they try and get in the ring with me for Llaveo, they're afraid of me.
When I think about what the communication leadership program has taught me, I think that it's possible to learn this stuff on your own, but it's tremendously difficult. And you get right here a built-in support network of people who are true professionals in their craft, and teaching you kind of step by step how to break down these very complicated, difficult things to do. I mean, making this documentary was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And so I feel like the communication leadership is a great program for kind of breaking down the complexities of doing these kind of heavy media projects and kind of giving you the support that you need to get it out there. I say that I would have done this stuff on my own, but I probably wouldn't have. So also, the communication leadership program is great for like the swath of communication. So there's film, there's writing, there's web building, there's design, there's advertising, there's social media, there's network theory. It's just kind of the whole kit and caboodle, which I think really prepares you really well in this. It's not just a niche program. It prepares you very well with all of the tools that you need to really be a communications professional in today's world.
So, yay, Amber. Again, an example of a project that came out of a course, Alex and Sarah's course on storytelling, and they're expecting their little story to come any minute now, and they've already blown a deadline, so we're hoping to send congratulations to that new little one. But with Amber's project, it came out of a course, but then it got accepted and had a premiere at the Seattle International Film Festival, and it's gone on to the other film festivals, highlighting and showcasing a particular community of practice here in the Northwest. The next example that I want to show you is another project that came out of a course that has now gone on and tied to a business example that's had millions upon millions of views.
The program, excited to work with other people and to see other people's work, to collaborate, and that's been such a joy so far. And then in the class, like in this video class, I've done video work before, but I learned a lot in this class, and the things that I learned, I was putting to use in this video, and it paid off. I'm Scott, and I'm a comm leader. Today I'm presenting a video I made for Drew Keller's multimedia storytelling class called Rainworks, Rain Activated Art.
I make things that make the world a more interesting place, like a rainwork.
So yeah, this was a class project. My goal was nothing more than to get a good grade and to show off to my classmates. The guy who's featured in it, Peregrine, posted on his Facebook where within a week he got 3 million views, and it's now over 14 million views, and has been kind of shown all over the world. I finished class and went right into spring break and spent the entire spring break writing, responding to requests to show it in Poland, Spain, Italy, Japan, China, Germany, England. I mean, it was pretty crazy. I think the main thing that I have really appreciated about the Comm Lead program so far is the people, the networking. Everybody is really excited about the program, excited to work with other people and to see other people's work, to collaborate, and that's been such a joy so far. And then in the class, like in this video class, I've done video work before, but I learned a lot in this class. And the things that I learned, I was putting to use in this video, and it paid off. I'm Scott, and
so another example of our student work. To go back again to this question of working with our partners, we work with a range of different partners, not only throughout Seattle nationally, if not as well as internationally. One of our partners over the past 5 years has been the Seattle Interactive Conference, which takes place in the fall here in Seattle. And this year they actually put what I call the I back in with the interaction through the use of a technique called Design Swarm, which gets at some of the areas that we talk about in terms of story strategy, starting with design thinking, your strategy of storytelling, and then your production. And I want to show you an example of that swarm in action where we were taking on a real problem of practice, the emergency of homelessness in Seattle, and it's a combination of a hackathon meets Top Shelf, if you will. And let's show that example.
All right, folks, welcome to the Seattle Interactive Conference Design Swarms.
Hi, I'm Brian Rauschenbach with the Seattle Interactive Conference. We're in our 5th year this year, and we wanted to sort of bring something to the event that was an interactive experience. We sort of layered on top of that a regional issue that we're dealing with here. We had the mayor announce this week that there was a state of emergency in Seattle around homelessness. We partnered up with Mary's Place to piggyback off a campaign that they're running right now around No Child Sleeps Outside. So the Design Swarm really helped us develop an interactive storyboard here on site over 2 days with teams from our region, and some teams came as far up from Portland to participate.
So what is really happening here that I want you to take away? Our world is being transformed. Our world is being transformed by hackers, makers, tinkerers, inventors. Old ways of design are shifting, right? And today I want you to adopt that mindset that you are going to take on transforming some of the challenges of Seattle. Design swarms are really a combination that brings together the agility of hackathons and the empathy of design thinking together into one agile framework. And design swarms are a way to take on these very wicked problems by bringing a group together of people who have complementary skills in design, in technology, in business, and to be able to move them through a series of sprints to be able to solve this problem using their superpowers.
I participated in a design swarm at the Seattle Interactive Conference 2015, and my superpowers are graphic design and illustration.
Within our group, my superpowers were strategy, obviously, and storytelling.
And the wonderful thing about the design swarms is it brings in this collision of superpowers. Everyone has something to bring to the table, collide with something else, have it build on itself, mutate, and really solve these wicked problems that are facing us today. And hopefully we can keep this going and get more and more people to come together and swarm together to help solve these problems.
And in the other hexagon, I want all of you to give yourself a team name. And the last one, you are here to solve a really hard problem of helping our city be a city that doesn't have an issue of homelessness. So I want you to give yourself a slogan. What is the aspiration of your team? All right? So 10 minutes to do that. Go.
The urgency of this challenge, not just in the announcement the other day, but it's something that we as Seattleites have been witnessing for a while, and the ability to kind of jump in and not necessarily be hired by anybody to take on this challenge, but to do it and know that you can bring skills to the table that could have some positive impact in the community is something that's very, very fulfilling, I think, for a lot of the people that worked here today.
At this point, I would like to invite Marty, who is the Executive Director of Mary's Place, to come here and tell us about what fabulous, fabulous Mary's Place does.
So we want to explain a little bit about Mary's Place. Mary's Place exists to answer some pretty tough questions that kids may ask their moms. Questions that may be easy for some of us to answer, but a homeless mom, it becomes a challenge. Mom, when are we going home? Dad, I don't feel so good. Where can I lie down? It's cold. Mom, can we go inside? Dad, will the school bus find us in our car? At Mary's Place, we work to answer some of those questions. If you don't know, there are 500 families sleeping outside tonight. Not enough shelter beds to bring them all inside. But to understand a little bit more about Mary's Place, you have to understand the women that we serve. The moms, the single women, the senior women. They are women that are just like you and I. And they face challenges like
It was very interactive. They kept going back to, we had our experts. We had women who have been through homelessness, who are living through homelessness, here to answer questions, and they weren't afraid to go and ask them questions. They kept going back and saying, okay, now what about this, and how does this work? So it wasn't about taking their ideas and running with it. It was, it was a lot of working together in partnership and listening to the experts.
I can't even talk about how many times someone has lost their idea, and I'm like, all right, so you have to go find your high school transcripts.
Another critical part of the process is to bring people who have certain talents and capabilities, but also to bring together people, stakeholders, to become part of the team, right? Who bring real experience. In this particular experience, we've had folks who have actually gone through the experience of being homeless, who actually go in and out of these teams. And what that offers for the teams is a kind of a grounding on ideas, and then slowly we actually get the people who are untrained designers, in this case the homeless folks, to also start thinking in designerly ways, right? This represents in some ways the shift that we're going in design, where it is from designing for to designing with to designing by. Right? So design swarms are really an example of design processes of design by people, facilitated by experts, right? Facilitated by folks who may have deep understanding of technology, business, or design, taking part in the process.
So early on, we had to think about how we were going to accomplish the challenge that we had in front of us. Early on through this design swarm challenge, you can see all these blue Post-it notes that are back behind us were a way for us to make sure that we're getting enough ideas and enough content out to steamroll good events, or good ideas to make sure that we had something good. But right across the tables from us were so many representatives from Mary's House. So as soon as we ran through a small stack of Post-it notes each, we went right to the client and started doing client interviews. They were so forthcoming and ready to share their challenges. They made it really easy for us to really identify what kind of impacts we could have. And then we continued to go back to them to get more and more bits of information and validation. It was a great process.
you have to have a kid. Don't go to a shelter, not a family shelter. Okay, so we are just single women. You have that here, same-sex families in Mary.
Look at the process folks have gone through. Look at the design swarm canvases. And they went from understanding who they were. This is where they understood their superpowers. They created a mission for themselves. They created a name for a team. Then, in a very short amount of time, they created over 50 ideas, which you can see over here. And then they moved from those 50 ideas, and pulling together the approximately 500 or 600 ideas in the room together into 5 directions, 5 promising directions, and from those they built what is really a system diagram, which is the core idea and all the features and capabilities around that idea. And so that is the description. And then they did one more flip. They again got feedback, and look at this. This is beautiful. This is where now they convert that into a user story full of empathy and emotion about the real life of a real human being, interacting with the solution they're proposed. And so this is one, and then 9 of these all around the room, which is fantastic. Look at that.
I think it was fantastic to actually engage in an activity like a design swarm at an interactive conference, because too often you're kind of being passive and sitting and listening to speakers, and this design swarm really allowed for an opportunity to delve into an interactive design process in a great environment with great people.
I haven't done a pitch quite like this before.
Oh yeah, the 20 by 20?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the format, so it's interesting. They have 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide, so it's on a timer. They've got to be clear about every one of those slides. Why does slide 1 go to 2, go to 3, to get that narrative arc to bring that idea to life. So I think what your challenge will be, and I think you've got it, but what I would do is you got to lead with the insight that you've hit on. So I wouldn't bury the lead.
So I love the ending of that video, this notion of don't bury the lead. So thank you for joining me in this hour of question and answer on the communication leadership. And what we put to you is, if you want to learn how to emerge that story, how to lead in the context of a communication first reality that we find ourselves in, come and join us. You can find more information out on our website. Or, I have an open door policy. As you can see, I do Vinyl Friday office hours, and we'll play some music, and we'll discuss dreams and aspirations, and continue to help folks evolve in their ability to tell, share, and then measure the success of the stories that we create. I've added a couple of URLs in the comment field, some links to some student examples, and I invite you to spend some time with them, because our students are truly doing amazing work and are leading and are becoming industry and community leaders, and we just want to encourage and continue to support their efforts in their emerging leadership. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the channel next time.